Hi, I'm Jack Baruzzini, and you're listening to The Secret to Stargate, where we talk about the hidden meanings and deeper layers found in the Stargate movies, TV series, and more. And joining me today are Father Cory Sticha. Hi, Father.
Howdy, Jack.
And Victor Lambs. Hey, Victor.
Hi, Jack, and yonder lies my ziggurat.
It's beautiful.
Thanks.
Today we're discussing the 8th episode of Season 5, The Tomb. SG1 discovers that a Russian team has gone missing on P2X338. SG1 and a Russian team return to the planet to explore the ziggurat, apparently Victor's ziggurat, that the team was lost in, and to find the Eye of Tiamat, a powerful gold device. They encounter a mysterious creature with a poison bite and discover that the creature has a symbiote inside of it. The symbiote, the gold Marduk, takes control of one of the Russian officers, but Jack and Colonel Chekhov are able to defeat him, burying both Marduk and the eye beneath the rubble of the tomb. This would have been a really good, speaking, I know we were talking before we started, 90s, with the CGI looking like a 90s video game. This would have been a fun, first-person shooter or something.
Yeah. We've talked often about how the CGI really stands up well from 2001 or whatever. Not the outdoor scenes on this one. It looked like, in my opinion, it looked like the Windows 95 Maze screensaver. It looked bad.
Yeah, it did look bad. They make up with it with the, creature effects, which, they fortunately don't dwell on that. You kind of just see the creature skittering by in the background. It's very effective. But yeah, the opening scenes that the
one that Victor chose for his background for those of you watching the video.
Yes.
I like it. Yeah.
See, that was kind of when I was growing up and using the computer and playing video games and stuff. So I've got a nostalgia for that aesthetic. So
you
makes me happy.
You just need a little full motion video person walking across and leaning down to pick things up off the ground and
yes,
stuff. The glory days of CD-ROM video games.
Yes. What are your thoughts on this episode, Father?
I like this one. This was a good one. Of course, you had the parallel crews. You had SG1, and then you had the Russian SG1, and the way they had to work together, whether they want to or not, and some pretty good one-liners here and there, especially from Jack, of course. And yeah, this really is a good one, but it even hits some of the horror movie tropes. So we'll get into that. But yeah,
yes, definitely got a lot of alien vibes from it, which I think they were going for. What about you, Victor?
Yeah, I really like this one as well. I mean, it's always cool when we get to hear and see, kind of about the Russian Stargate program. And I think part of the reason it's so cool is that it doesn't happen that often. And so here we actually get to meet a Russian Stargate team, and how they differ in their, morals and procedures and protocols from our, the normal Stargate team. I like that. I like that, we start off with this bug hunt, man, and then it turns into something, a little different. And it does turn back into who's got the Gould, type thing. But, and then there's some actual really horrific elements too. When you realize that Marduk was so bad that he was sealed up in a sarcophagus with a carnivorous creature to basically just, devour him for all of time as the sarcophagus, restored him, and then he would be eaten again. And then, of course, being a Gould, he had the idea that it wouldn't even occur to me. It's hey, instead of letting this guy eat me, why don't I just go into him and then I can eat me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was smart. But yeah, so it's a return. And I think the last episode we see Marduk, only appearance of Marduk, although he is referenced in Thor's hammer. So
yes, definitely. It was definitely kind of a Prometheus kind of punishment there with having your body be restored every day and then eaten again, which was an interesting body horror angle to the sarcophagus that I've never thought of, but it was creative and creepy, so I liked it.
Yeah, it kept going until it finally broke or was shut off. So that was
And so I guess I don't know if they established this before, but a Gould can kind of take over any sort of life form, I guess, if it's big enough.
That's a good question.
Apparently. I mean, we know obviously the Unas was their first host, but that's because they came up from the same planet.
Right.
But beyond that, I guess apparently this thing was big enough that it could fit in there and can control it.
Compatible, yeah.
And if it's a mindless creature, just a creature that reacts on instinct, well, then the Goa'uld can takes over anyways and provides the sentience anyways. So
Yeah, but we don't see a lot of like Goa'ulds taking over cats or anything. Or
So
fortunately, maybe I don't
now.
know. Yeah, what's that? Oh no!
I know you've noticed my cat likes to try to mess up the show. I think she's got a Goa'uld in her.
well, I see the flashing eyes. Oh wait, that's just the cat.
Yeah.
Reflective
That's just a
nature
cat.
of a cat's eye. No. Maybe that's really it. Really is when the cat's eyes flash at night. That's really the Goa'uld coming out.
Yep, she does yell "Cree" a lot. So
Yeah,
Mainly when she's hungry. Oh,
that's a good theory about goats too, because goats have weird eyes already, and they scream a lot. So
fair enough. Yeah, I would like to see. I assume that's not something they probably touch on later on, but like, what are the limits of a Goa'uld being able to take over a host? And like, I wonder if because they seem to only focus on humanoids. Or basically just humans from Earth on different planets. But I'd like to see like a Goa'uld Asgard or something like that.
Yeah, that would have been a good idea, but we don't see that, I don't think.
and they did talk about, and Thor's Hammer is one of the episodes where they kind of discussed it. Is because that's of course where we first saw the Unas, and they said these were the original hosts of the Goa'uld, but they discovered humans were more compatible with them. They humans were a better species for them to go with. So and I don't remember if it ever did say, but they could do other species other than the Unas and humans, but if the fact they could do with one other species, other human, kind of implies that there's quite a range that they can go in. And I mean, you could even imagine that they would use even, an animal like this creature just temporarily until they find a better host.
It's like when a snail uses like a piece of trash for its shell until it finds something better.
Yep.
There's something else that they mentioned in this episode. Teal'c being able to sense a symbiote, which that would have come in handy a lot of other times.
Handy. Yeah.
Like, there's been so many instances where they thought someone was a Goa'uld, or they didn't know, or they've infiltrated the base, and apparently he was keeping this under wraps.
I don't know. I think he might. It just might be bandwagon jumping on his part. Like Sam is like, well, I don't sense a Goa'uld, and Teal'c's like, well, I don't sense a Goa'uld either. Like he didn't have anything else to do, and so he was just
maybe it was a result of his brainwashing. After he recovered from his brainwashing, he developed this ability.
He lost his sense of smell, but he gained the ability to. I don't know. Like
it's good. That's a good headcanon.
Yeah.
But of course, Carter can because of Jolinar.
Yeah.
And that's been established. So,
and we do get, speaking of backstory, we do get some really good backstory at the beginning. I like when they show like the team that went missing, and Peter DeLuise is one of the photos of one of the missing Russian officers. I was going to look up if who the other photos were of, but they kind of like say, well, how did your team even know to go to this address? Because it wasn't on one of the addresses that you guys went to, and you shouldn't have known about it. And it's like, well, there was this artifact that I think did they say like the Germans recovered it, and then we recovered it from the Germans from an excavation in Iraq. And if you notice these are DHD symbols, and they address it. It's like, well, you didn't know about the Stargate, so how did you know? And it's like, well, we had a DHD, all this time that they recovered from the Germans as well. So kind of some cool, like, background world building, geopolitical intrigue and stuff going on. So I always appreciate when they throw that in.
So that implies that the Nazis had some Goa'uld technology.
Well, they had the Stargate, I think. They just didn't know how to use it. Yeah.
Well, there is an apocryphal show called Origins that explains that, yes, the Nazis did have it experimented on it, but we don't count that. That's apocryphal.
Until Trip from Enterprise. Yeah.
Yeah. I looked it up. So the other people in that picture are Doug McLean, Peter West, and Ray Douglas, and all of them have worked behind the camera.
Okay,
so they're like one's an art director, one's a special effects director, things like that. So they're basically people they grabbed from behind the camera and said, "Stand here, take a picture. You're now in the show."
Yeah.
And so now canonically they're all like the Morbius doctors, right? From the Brain of Morbius episode where
pretty much.
Yeah. in the episode Brain of Morbius, if I remember correctly, they showed all these people, like they had Doctor Who chained up, and they're like, these are all your past incarnations, and they showed like a bunch of people who weren't doctors up to that point, and it was like crew members and writers for the show.
Yeah, this was the Fourth Doctor episode of the Fourth Doctor, and they showed the first three Doctors, so John Pertwee and Patrick Troughton and William Hartnell. And then they show all these other random people, and they were literally just like camera operators and stuff like that they took a picture of in some like a top hat or something like that, just to say that they were previous doctors before William Hartnell.
So canonically, they're Doctors Who, even though they So
that would really up the number of regenerations, though.
Yeah. Well, they threw all that out with the Timeless Child stuff, so I mean, it doesn't matter now.
True.
But for more information about that, listen to Secrets of Doctor Who, especially the conversation of the 13th Doctor.
Different show. Yeah, I like that they're bringing in more of like the geopolitical angle with the other teams. It does make me wonder, though, like I feel like if you've got multiple teams from different countries going off-world, that's probably going to cause some sort of issue, because I can imagine a lot of the civilizations out there are not going to really distinguish between the Americans and the Russians when they're coming. They're just going to know they're from Earth.
And this is why we're going to have very shortly the IOC, and I'm not talking about the International Olympic Committee. I'm talking about the International. Well, I just blanked on it. Darn it.
Oh, the International Operating Committee, or no? What is it? Yeah, the
Oversight. The International Oversight
that
Committee.
Was it, with Dr. Elizabeth Weir.
Yep. And
Nice.
Robert Picardo.
Yeah.
And they're like the UN of Stargate or something.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it ends up being 3 or 4 countries that China or Russia being one of them, China being another, that find out about the Stargate, and so they have agreement to oversee the Stargate operations. That's probably season 6 we start seeing that. Yeah, but this is kind of the start of that, with the Russians starting to work with the U.S. SGC. And we've got Colonel Chekhov, who we see today. He doesn't have a name yet, but that's who we see here. And we'll see a lot more of him.
Yes.
Chekhov, of course, named for Pavel Chekhov of Star Trek.
There were no nuclear vessels in this episode, I noticed, though.
No, there weren't.
The cool thing, like that, the actor who plays Colonel Chekhov in this, and I'm blanking on his name, but he played, I think, at least 3 different characters on MacGyver, like when they needed police lieutenant Gary Chalk, when they needed like a police lieutenant or like a hitman or something, they would just like throw him in. So he was one of the MacGyver regular kind of ensemble players there.
Of course, what's funny, he's playing a Russian, but he's from the UK.
Yeah, and he didn't have a Russian accent at all, like in any of those roles and stuff. So here he gets to put on his stage Russian accent.
Yeah. It's also fun to I like that scene where they're comparing the guns.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So which I don't know. I don't know anything about guns, so I'm gonna let y'all handle that. But it was fun to see that back and forth.
Yeah, they had one little bonding moment there where, is that the P90? Oh, yes, it is. 50 rounds vertical mount. Oh, I prefer this one. And isn't that a Yugoslavian made gun? As Victor pointed out, the P90 was made in Belgium.
Yeah, which is something like the writers may not have known, because or I assume Colonel O'Neill would have known that he was not carrying a U.S. made weapon at that point, but it is a very nice scene where they start to bond, and then there is kind of that growing bonding between Jack and the Russian colonel. Was it Valarin? Or no?
That's Zhukov.
Zhukov, yeah. So that was very nice. And I do like how there's already this tension between them. Daniel needs to translate the cuneiform on the ziggurat in order to open it up. And it's very challenging because it's, thousands of years old, and it's not standard, Babylonian that, he's familiar with. And so they get back to the planet, and, everybody's just ready to go. And Daniel's still translating this thing for hours, and the teams are just kind of sitting around. And so we get some nice moments with Jack and Daniel as he's encouraging him to hurry up and and open the door, and then we're into the tomb, and the tomb looks great inside. I mean, it looks very creepy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I love Daniel. Well, do you want to give it a try?
Yeah.
No, we're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, the tomb was really well done, and of course it's just a bunch of corridors, but that give them a lot of flexibility. I'm sure they only had to build a couple of sets or redress a couple of sets to make it look like this old creepy tomb instead of something else like a spaceship or something like that.
Yeah, really gives you especially in sets like that, you can use the low light to your advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there's skeletons in this episode. Because the previous Russian team has gone in, and even though they've been only gone for, I don't know, like what, a year or something, they're already skeletons, and that's when they find out that something's been eating everybody.
Yes, the mysterious creature, and then they discover the sarcophagus, and we learn that Marduk, the Goa'uld, has been locked in the sarcophagus with this creature, and because of the regenerative powers of the sarcophagus, he is eaten by the creature and then regenerated, and I just like that.
Yeah,
that's just horrific. Yeah.
One thing I did get a kick out of is the Russian expression. We have our Russian team there, and they see their comrade who's been turned into a skeleton, and one of them goes, and I'm probably not saying this, like "Bolshu moin," and the closed captions I had translated that as like "holy," expletive deleted. And then, which was interesting. And then later on, like another character says it, more as like a gasp type thing. And the same word, but it's translated as "dear God." So it's probably one of those expressions that can be translated a number of ways. It was just funny that the captioners were kind of, experimenting with how it was displayed.
Yeah, to title it.
The SG Stargate Command wiki translates it as "oh my God" or "my God" or something like that, or "holy God" or something along that line. Right. It doesn't do the expletive.
Yeah, I may have been using the Russian knockoff captions or something. I bought my captions in Yugoslavia.
They're the PAL standards. They don't work right or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we get basically kind of I felt like it was an homage to like the Alien movies where you got all these people hunted through these corridors by the strange creature, picking them off one by one. Yeah. So it's always fun to see.
Very much the horror, 80s horror movie of you've got this group that goes into a strange building and they get separated, and one by one they start dropping off, or and you hear the screams around the corridor and everybody starts running and things like that. But they did a good job with it. It wasn't one of these where like, well, of course, I mean, almost all the Russian team dies. The cute woman survives, but beyond that,
I was going to say she goes on to be, I think she's on Battlestar Galactica.
Yep.
That's where I recognized her from. Yeah.
Jennifer Haley played Hardball.
Right.
Ensign Hardball.
Oh, okay.
On BSG.
And she was supposed to be the original Cadet Haley.
That's right.
Yeah, that's why they called Cadet Haley is because she was originally going to be cast for that role, but wasn't, and then she was cast in this role.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we don't actually see that much of the creature. I mean, it's very effective when it like skitters by in the background. They kind of do the same thing with the replicators, and then it jumps on the Russian lieutenant's head and bites her and puts her into a state of shock, and then the next time we see it, it's been shot and then dead because the Antealc like pokes around in its head and says, there was a symbiote in here, but not anymore.
And most of what we see from it is just they put a punch bowl over the camera lens, and that's we see that's its
creature
eyes,
vision.
The creature vision, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is, again, it's effective because it shows that this isn't a human type vision. This is more of a creature, an insect type vision.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1950s monster movie effect, right? Where you always show things from the monster's point of view, and then you don't actually need to, have a cool monster effect or anything.
No,
but
hey, it gets the job done. So
yeah, they could have had like its little tentacles or something in front, because whenever they did that in the 50s, you'd see the guys, like the monster's hands, like the rubber gloves or whatever and stuff. So it would have been cool if they'd had like the little tentacles whenever they did Monster Vision there too.
We did see his claws come out of its cocoon, but that's about it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like it was kind of anticlimactic the way it died, but I guess that was sort of a bait and switch, which obviously Marduk is the real villain here, not the mindless monster.
Yep.
So
yeah. And we find out like, which Russian, because it's going to be a Russian, of course, the Gould is in, and then, he goes and confronts, O'Neill and Zukov says, I'll give you the Eye of Tiamat, but gives him a grenade instead, which I don't know about like Russian grenades, but I think that should have just like,
killed everybody in that
room. Or at least the guy holding it should have, exploded him a little bit. But then, he's back in the next scene and he looks just kind of like he's a little like dusty. And he's like, you tried to blow me up. But Zukov dies because the roof collapses on him.
Mm-hmm.
But fortunately, Daniel and Teal'c have discovered that there's a ring transporter in the ziggurat, and so they can use that to get out because at this point they're sealed in.
Yep.
But and so that's how they escape. But then, Jack has already like laid a whole bunch of C4 around the place, and Sam like hits the little button, and that's how they blow up Marduk or seal him in.
Yeah, I guess he's because he doesn't come back, I don't think. But
no, I don't think he does.
Yeah, he's
no more Marmaduke.
Nope. Now the Eye of Tiamat we hear about later, but yeah, not Marduk. So the Goa'uld that gets it later must have went and grabbed it from the pile under where it was left.
Maybe Marduk was horribly wounded and then got to the sarcophagus and was able to revive himself, and that's why he was not many pieces.
That's a good point. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, although it would be like his like severed hand would be like, Thing from Adam's Family like crawling into the sarcophagus, I think.
Yeah.
Like
I wonder what happens if you so the sarcophagus can bring people back to life. They've established that.
No. I think they have to be alive still, right?
I think that you can be like mostly dead.
Yeah.
And it will work.
So could you put someone who's had like all their limbs severed in there and then put their limbs in there with them, and will it put them back together?
They've never shown that.
Yeah, I mean, given that the creature can skeletonize a person, I think we have to assume that like Marduk was maybe skeletonized and then like revived. I don't know. Maybe not.
Or at least eaten quite a bit of it.
Yeah.
Because when they found the sarcophagus, it was dead. The crystal wasn't there or anything like that, so it didn't have power.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But that was after the Russian team had been in there, so...
Creature is very thorough, too. Nibbling all the way down to the bone, but leaving the skeleton completely intact. I like that.
Yeah, that's a very delicate operation.
It's like those people that when they have fried chicken, they get every little piece of the skin off. They don't leave anything on the bone.
Yeah,
rather than just cutting your losses after you've had like most of it.
Yep, all the meat. This
is why I'm in favor of boneless chicken wings. I know they're basically glorified chicken nuggets, but they're much easier to eat.
Yeah.
I was surprised there was only one creature. I mean, I guess, there wasn't another creature to make more creatures with, but I guess it makes sense. They just had the one creature to seal up with him, but I guess it also helped keep the animation costs down and didn't turn it into another like replicator, shoot all the bug type episode.
Yeah, I presume that they brought the creature there for the explicit purpose of sticking it in the sarcophagus with him. So you only need one for that. Of course, this does go back to the Gould's overly imaginative and not very efficient ways of punishing people. It's like, why don't you just get rid of him? He won't be a problem ever again.
Yeah.
But hey, it's more fun that way.
This was his, this was the people. This wasn't the Goa'ulds that did this, right?
No,
it was like his slaves.
Yeah,
it was his slaves that did it.
It was the humans.
That's right. They said it was his priests.
Yeah.
Right. So, I guess they would be humans then. Yeah.
Killing's not good enough for you. Or too good for you, I guess. And so, yeah.
Then they sealed them up with iron bars and
Yeah.
Locked them away.
And and so we get a pretty cool exchange, where at the end Colonel Chekhov is like, "Hey, like all you guys survived, but like only one of my guys survived." And Jack's like, "Well, that's because like we're just better and we don't believe in fatalism and stoicism and stuff." And Jack's not very happy. And he's like, "I wouldn't count on any future collaboration, if I were you." And Colonel Chekhov gets like the really good line at the end. He's like, "No, I would." And so it just says that the Russians are here to stay. Yeah. Oh yeah, and that was another funny reference that that Daniel said, like when the Russians were going to arrive on the base, he's like, "The Russians are coming," which is a reference to the movie "The Russians Are Coming." The Russians are coming, where Russians land at like Gloucester Bay, and it's a very funny comedy from the I think 60s or early 70s. I haven't seen it in a long time, but it's a very funny comedy movie of the era of the Cold War era.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't think Jack really has the he's not at the level where he can decide if we're going to be dealing with the Russians more. So
yeah.
Although it does make me wonder about in the future timeline of the Stargate universe, how these different different nations deal with each other while also having to work with using the Stargate. Is it kind of like the International Space Station, where even if things are kind of frosty on the ground, they got to kind of cooperate?
Yeah, I mean Atlantis has basically representatives from pretty much every nation you could think of there, but they're cut off from Earth, so they don't really. I mean, and they're professionals and stuff, right? Where you see more of this is, and it's not even an Earth thing, is in universe where there's like, through a fluke, there's two factions of people, and they hate each other. And isn't this dramatic that everybody hates each other all the time?
Yeah.
And and everybody's enemies and then eventually they resolve that, I think, or starting to, but yeah, so and that's one of the cool things about Atlantis is that, there are people from all these different countries and stuff there.
Nice.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into that one.
Yeah.
A couple more seasons. We'll get there soon enough.
Yeah. Yeah, we're already in season 5, so
yeah,
trucking along. Awesome. Did y'all have any other thoughts on this episode?
Nothing here.
No, I like it. It's got a lot of action. It's cool. There's Russians in it, and like I said, anytime we can bring in the Russian Stargate program, it shakes things up, and it's kind of interesting, like kind of parallel teams and stuff. I did like how basically their patches said, SG1 only like with the Russian or the Cyrillic, characters on it instead.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool.
Oh, I forgot to mention that about the other team where they literally have the matching team. So you had the grizzled colonel, grizzled bitter colonel.
Yeah.
You had the young woman. You had the nerdy guy, and then you had the big guy.
Oh, the tank. Yeah, and the tank goes. Yeah.
The tank was the first one. He's the one that got squished.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like they were matching team, almost like mirror image teams.
Yeah, I liked how they did that. And they really lampshaded that too when they're introducing them.
Mm-hmm.
So that was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and I did like all the different pair ups, like how they were paired up differently and stuff. I thought that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Teal'c with the Russian colonel saying, like, I don't think we should just start traipsing into this, Gould sarcophagus room. We should wait for Colonel, and Colonel Zhukov is like, no, and then steps on the pressure plate that causes the whole booby trap to activate and stuff.
Yeah, you definitely see a difference in methodology there.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, before we go, we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Stargate, including Kent H., Henry H., Haley H., Daniel C., and Tess W. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Stargate and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give and be sure to follow the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or on the SQPN YouTube channel. To find previous episodes of Secrets of Stargate and to send feedback, please visit sqpn.com/Stargate. And you can email us at stargate@sqpn.com or follow StarQuest on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia or on Twitter at SQPN. And we'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the next episode of SG1, Between Two Fires. Until then, Father Cory, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Stargate.
Thank you, Jack.
And Victor Lambs, thank you too.
Thanks, Jack, and remember, we take risks, but we don't hand out cyanide pills, and we don't leave people behind.
Merca.
Merco.
And once again, I'm Jack Baruzzini. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Stargate on StarQuest.
Anyway, I'm sorry, but that just happens to be how I feel about it. What do you think?